Hi, this is a response to Nykytyne2 on the subject of vegetarianism. Just doing this while watching Coughlin666's 24-hour blog. Watched it for a bit and I'm already knackered, so God knows how he's going to survive. It's cool to watch. One of the points you make is that if you're part of eating meat, you're part of the problem, sort of funding this immoral treatment of animals. I disagree. I think what you need to do is push for reform through the market. So if you buy meat, farmed products from sources where the standards are high, then you direct the market in that, you push it in that direction. You begin giving the message that it's more profitable to implement these standards than to go for cheap mass production and don't have these standards. And if you can direct the market so it's more profitable to have these standards, then the meat industry will change and follow suit. But to say I'm not going to eat meat, I don't think it will change anything. I don't think, because there will always be people who eat meat, but you need to direct the market, you need to enforce these standards. And I mean, I support eating meat, of course, but for those who don't, it's realistic. The first step you'd want to take is the same step I want to take, and that is to improve standards in the meat industry. And once you have those standards across the industry, then you could worry about trying to phase out eating meat altogether. And the way to do that is through the international system, through lobbying, through pressures on the market, as I just said, through spreading awareness of these standards. And one thing that really sort of winds me up with like hardline animal rights activists is they completely blur the line between how we should treat animals and how we should treat humans, and that there should be no sort of moral stopgap in between. And like, to me, there really is a boundary, and there really should be a boundary. Like, you see these PETA activists and stuff, and they take pictures of the Holocaust and then they compare it to like caged hens or factory farming. It's just, it starts comparing the suffering of humans with the suffering of animals, and like there's no difference. There's a massive difference in how we should treat humans to how we should treat animals, for a number of reasons. The first reason is because we have a sort of a fellowship with other human beings. They're our same species, and we have an inherent sympathy towards them that we should do. I mean, you get philosophers like Rousseau that say human nature is inherently good, and we are inherently sympathetic to fellow human beings. And second, if you don't draw the line, then it can lead to, I think it can lead to the atrocities that we've seen in the past in human history, where we divide people into subgroups of people. Because human life, religious people say it's sacred, non-religious people say, well, it's the equivalent of sacred, which is probably special, or there is an inalienable set of civil rights that we should respect with each human being. And we shouldn't regard them as just cattle or animals, or we shouldn't regard them, because animals are different creatures. And I mean, you compare the natural world to like this place where a survival of the fittest, where there's evil and misery, and we're somehow above that. But what you're doing is you're creating this sort of moral claim. It's just like a sort of a moral claim you're sort of imprinting onto people, that they're above nature. But what does that mean? I mean, that's just a sort of an identity that you find convenient to use. But there's no evidence that by killing and eating meat in a humane fashion I'm any less moral. That it's somehow a measure of my morality in terms of whether I kill animals and eat meat. I think we have a set of principles we should regard with our own species, how we should treat our own species, from human to human, and then we should have a moral code for how we treat other animals, different spheres of morality. And the one with which we apply to animals is the one where it's okay to eat meat. And I don't see why you can't have that moral duality, given that we're dealing with two different kinds of creature. In the natural world, this duality of morals exists prevalently. You see it, one of Thunderfoot's videos on creationism, you see piranhas sort of swimming together and eating like a chicken they've dunked in the water or whatever. And it just goes to show that piranhas regard their own species with a certain regard, and then other creatures they consider in their brains prey, is they have a different sort of whatever the equivalent of morality is for a piranha. I don't see why we're exempt from that. I don't see why we can't have that a similar duality, given we're part of the natural world, and the way we react to the natural world is in different ways. I think there will always be people that eat meat. I think there are good reasons to eat meat. I don't think there's any real moral argument against it, really. As you said yourself, you know, if you haven't really got an argument for eating an animal that's been killed humanely. Although I think comparing it to killing a human being humanely is a bit... It just shows that you need to understand there is a moral boundary between how we regard humans and how we regard animals, and this is a very important boundary. Oh man, my eyebrows join in the middle.